Was in mixed martial arts. Remember last week, around this time, I said that I believe the most anticipated fight of the upcoming UFC pay-per-view, UFC 209, was, no shocker, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. And I also said that I hope, with around 5 days to go before the fight, that they wrap them up in bubble wrap. No one bother them, no one talk to them, no one cough near them. Let's just keep them in very, very safe quarters so that nothing happens on our way to the fight. And by now you probably know the fight never happened. We found out Friday morning during the official weigh-ins, and I maintain once again that the official weigh-ins are without a doubt the most riveting part of fight week because you're seeing it all unfold in front of you. I mean, it's just unbelievable. We started the weigh-ins. There was a report out there from Russia that Khabib went to the hospital early Friday morning. And then all throughout the show, I'm doing the broadcast of the show, as you know, in that sort of whispering golf voice. And I'm trying to text people surrounding him, involved with him, part of his team, who know him, who know his dad, anyone that I could think of to try to find out if he's going to show up to the weigh-ins. And then one by one, they show up and there's no Khabib. And then with like a couple minutes left, they tell us that he had to go to the hospital, that he has been medically, disqualified, if you will, from competing, from weighing in, and that the fight was off. And then we had this whole situation where the UFC was trying to get Michael Johnson and they offer Tony Ferguson less money. I mean, what a bizarre turn of events it was. So it was kind of a black cloud hanging over the event from Friday afternoon up until Saturday. And it was unfortunate because that was the fight everyone was looking forward to. And it was the third time they have been booked and then eventually canceled. None this late in the process. Those other two times happened before, but it was right there. We had the face off. We were so close. Anyhow, it was a very eventful week. It started really, as far as news is concerned, I think on Wednesday when the UFC officially announced that Michael Bisping would be fighting George St. Pierre. Date, venue, TBD. In my opinion, and anyone out there, correct me if I'm wrong, I threw this out there on Twitter, I don't recall the UFC ever doing this, announcing a fight of this magnitude and not attaching a date to it. And I know they're talking about July, but I continue to be told that September-ish or fall-ish is more realistic. And of course, now what do we do with Yoel Romero? Dana White saying multiple times they're going to, quote unquote, take care of him. He's going to take care of him, saying it with a smile. I asked him at the press conference what that meant. And of course, as you probably saw, he did not appreciate that question. Why? I don't know. I don't know why we can't just say what's happening. With Carlos Condit, we said that, it wasn't us, it was them. They said that they were going to take care of him financially. What's so bad about that? Of course, we know what's so bad about that. You don't want other fighters to then say, well, why aren't you taking care of me when this situation happens again? Because I can assure you it will happen again. And wow, what does Damian Maia think about all of this? Romero's being taken care of. Maia has to fight Masvidal. That's how he's being taken care of. Their resume is very much similar. You can make a case that Maia's run, his 6-fight winning streak, more impressive than Romero's recent winning streak, but them's the breaks. So we found out about that on Wednesday. We still don't know when they're fighting. Thursday we had the media day, and those were eventful. Had the Francis Ngannou open workout. That was a lot of fun. Had the MMA awards, which was a fun time. Thank you very much to everyone once again who voted for us. MMAfighting.com, Media Source of the Year. For myself, Journalist of the Year. I really appreciate it. I wrote a long thing on my Instagram about it, and especially after the year we had last year, it really meant a lot, and maybe even more so than in years past. So thank you very much for that. I share it with my colleagues, of course, at MMA Fighting because I think they all play a massive part in not just my success, but the success of the entire site. And I do want to give a shout out to my man, Chuck Mindenhall, the man in the hat, who I forgot to mention in my acceptance speech. Next time I do this, if I do it, I'm going to write everyone's name down because it's too hard to remember all these names. Give a shout out to New York Rick as well. A lot of people were mad about that, but I was trying to think of like the day-to-day MMA fighting people, and New York Rick shows up for like 2 hours, once a week. Still, I was going to mention him if the MMA Hour won, which leads me to our last award. We did not win. We were robbed by the Ultimate Fighter, who I do believe won for the first time. Somewhat surprising because I would argue that the Ultimate Fighter is less relevant now than it's ever been. But hey, they deserve to win. So congratulations to them. A lot goes into that show. Great production. So I can't really complain going 2 for 3. Meant a lot to us, so we appreciate it. Then, of course, Friday was the weigh-ins. You know what happened there. Then we had the press conference, and it was a familiar sight because, once again, GSP is up there on the dais, and there's no opponent. They couldn't find Michael Bisping. He overslept, had a wild night at the awards, won comeback of the year, he won upset of the year, and he was actually offended by it. That was amazing. Classic Michael Bisping. He's like, what do you mean, upset of the year? I was supposed to win. Everyone thought I was going to beat Luke Rockhold at 199. Anyhow, he eventually showed up. It was very entertaining. They had a nice little back and forth, and now I'm excited. There was also a great video of Georges St-Pierre walking into the cage for the first time in 3.5 years, officially as a UFC fighter once again, and that gave me goosebumps. Like a ray of sunshine kind of breaking through the dark clouds of Khabib Nurmagomedov and Ferguson. Here comes GSP with that nice-looking suit, walking to the cage, bowing before he enters. It was great to see him back. It was genuinely very, very, very nice, heartwarming to see Georges St-Pierre back. And then, of course, Saturday we had UFC 209, which I think, as I noted on Twitter, was everything UFC 208 wasn't. I thought it was a very entertaining card, top to bottom. Tyson Pedro with a big win over Paul Craig, slowing down that hype train. If you haven't seen the Tyson Pedro scrum afterwards, do check it out. Walking out with this army hat that was worn by his cousin who died while serving in Afghanistan. He asked the UFC for permission to wear it. Thankfully, they said yes. Classy move on their part. Of course, classy move on his part. What a great story there. The young Australian fighter, still undefeated. Loved that fight. Yuri Alcantara with the comeback win over Luke Sanders. Can make a case that it could have been stopped earlier. Luke Sanders getting the point deducted. I thought Mark Goddard was all over it. Tremendous refereeing once again by the Brit. What a comeback that was. I thought that was going to be the comeback of the night. And then we had, of course, Darren Elkins with that damaged tattoo rising from the ashes against Mirsad Bektik. I mean, what a performance. The greatest win of his career. Great victory shot afterwards. Darren Elkins was on the brink of defeat, of extinction, and came back somehow. I don't know how. He mustered up that Indiana strength and was able to defeat the previously undefeated Mirsad Bektik. So that was very impressive. Alistair Overeem defeating Mark Hunt. A lot of fun. Cynthia Calvillo, who got bumped from the curtain jerker, defeating Amanda Cooper. Dan Kelly turning back the clock, or maybe even not. Maybe he just gets better as he gets older against Rashad Evans, who looked good physically at 185, but of course did not perform like we're used to him performing. And it has been, unfortunately a slow decline for Rashad, and now we wonder what's next for him. And then how about David Tamor defeating Lando Venata? No controversies there. All fun fights. A lot of underdogs winning. Tamor, Kelly, Elkins. I think Alcantara and Sanders were quite even. Pedro's somewhat of an underdog, I think. And then we get to the main event. Let's pause that thought. I'll tell you who's on today's show, and then we'll talk about the main event, UFC 209. Today's show, super stacked.